Hello, everyone. I am Amber Tackett. I teach at Paul Blazer High School. This is my 6th year teaching AP Art History. And in AP Art History, we teach 250 artworks from around the world. And the thing that has always been the hardest for my students is architecture. Because you can teach a 2D painting with a 2D picture, easy. They get it. It's flat. They get it. You could teach sculpture even with photos because you can show them 3 or 4 different views of the sculpture. But one of the issues with architecture is that the flat 2D PowerPoint image just doesn't do the building justice. So my question to you is, have any of you ever been to Stonehenge? Or the Sistine Chapel ceiling? Or Taj Mahal? Each of those are places that I have to talk about. And I had the opportunity summer before last to take a trip with students to Europe, which has always been a dream of mine. I've always wanted to go. And in fact, when I stepped in the Sistine Chapel, I broke into tears because it was just so overwhelmingly beautiful. And I wanted my students, in that moment, I wanted my students to have that kind of visceral experience of these places that you can only have by going there and not seeing them on a PowerPoint slide. And so when I was thinking about ways to do that, I thought virtual reality. Most students have access to cell phones, and if they don't have access to cell phones, there's other means of getting them the tools they need. For instance, I wrote a grant a couple years ago to get tablets for my classroom. And so this year I decided to get VR headsets. And so I ended up getting 30 headsets. I have 20 that fit just the typical cell phone size. I did some research because I'm, still an iPhone 6. But, some of my students have, the whatever it is now, 10, 11. And so I made sure to get VR headsets that would fit the larger cell phones. And then for the students of mine who don't have access to cell phones, I ended up getting VR headsets that will actually fit 7-inch tablets, which is the exact size of the tablets that I have. And I have already received those and started using them in my AP class. And the first site that we did was the Parthenon. And so in the past, when I was talking about the Parthenon, I always hoped that my AP students had been to Washington, D.C., so that I could relate. The building of the Parthenon looks very similar to the structures in Washington, D.C., like the Lincoln Memorial. And so I had to be like, okay, picture back in 6th grade when you went with the 6th grade field trip to those places. And now I can say, all right, guys, via Google Classroom, there's a link to a VR video on YouTube. Here's your headsets, put it on, and then while they're in the virtual reality of Athens, Greece, I was talking to them about the different things they were seeing in person in that immersive experience. And there's actually pictures on my poster down there of my students with the VR glasses on, and some of them are like this, and some of them are like this, and so they're actually looking around. So it is as if they are in person in those locations. And so one of the ways that I'm seeing if it makes a difference is basing last year's data from my classroom assessments on this year's. And I've already noticed that when they have to answer a question that explains like the physical characteristics of a building, they are far better at doing that now than they were last year already. And although not every single building I'll talk about is available yet on VR, I fully expect it to be in the next few years for that. So each video is only about 5 to 10 minutes, so it's very manageable to talk about the architecture and then do the immersive experience so they can see for themselves the things that I had just talked about. So any questions from you guys?